Welcome, everybody, to the Sales Leadership Awakening podcast. I'm Stephen Rosen with Colleen, Stanley, and together we track the age-old issue of bridging the gap between knowing and actually doing in sales. Colleen, welcome. Great to see you. And we have a great guest today as well.
We do have a great guest, and it's Dan Flanagan. Now, I have to tell everyone that's listening, in full disclosure, Dan and I have known each other at least 15 years, and that's why I was very excited to have him as a guest today. So, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself? You're with BluSky Restoration, obviously, but tell our audience today the teams you lead and a little bit about what led your path to becoming a Chief Revenue Officer.
Sure, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Colleen. Appreciate it, Stephen. Dan Flanagan of BluSky Restoration. I'm Chief Sales Officer there. I've been at BluSky for 18 years, or going on 18 years. Prior to that, I'll share a little bit background before that, and then share a little bit more about who I lead and what we do here at BluSky. But been in this side of the industry, the restoration industry. We fix broken buildings, both commercially, residentially. So I've been in this side of the industry for about 25 years. Prior to that, I talked with Colleen extensively about this over the years. I received some of my best, most impactful training with the Southwestern Company as a student in college for 4 years, and then 3 years afterwards as a sales leader for that company in recruiting college students to go sell educational products door to door. I did that all the way through college, paid my way through college doing that, and knocked on 3,000 doors a summer. Quite frankly, got some of the most impactful training, speakers, exposure to all that through those 4 and 3 years with that company. I realized that there are so many nuggets and age-old foundational concepts that regardless of where we are, those still apply, and use that along my way, both personally as I got into this industry and built a team. With that, I transitioned into this side of the industry for a short period. I was an independent insurance adjuster, so I was able to learn enough to be really dangerous, I say, about the insurance side of the world and the construction side of the world to go get into this side of the industry. After about 5 years in that, I really started this side of the industry and joined a smaller company that was a small company in Denver, one location. It was about $4 million in revenue. They brought me on to both sell and kind of start leading the sales charge. And we grew it from 4 to about 16 million over 4 years. And the founder of BluSky was one of my competitors. He just started BluSky. He was 2 years into it. And he said, we were both from Iowa. We were friendly banter, a lot of competition. And he recruited me to come lead a similar charge at BluSky. And they were about 5 million in revenue after 2 years, off to a great start, and really carried the bag and sold for 8 to 10 years, along with building that team and structure. There's a long story. We'll get into some of it here today, but we've grown from 5 million to right on pace here for 700 million this year. Incredibly blessed to have the opportunities I was given by both our founder and the executive team as I grew into that as well. With BluSky, right now, I have 5 direct reports. I have 4 VPs of sales that really lead teams that handle different pieces of our business, from national accounts to large loss expertise to sales process and the insurance services sector too. And I also have a national director of marketing that reports to me as well.
From knocking on doors and literally knocking on doors, no one gets that type of sales experience anymore. Now it's dialing and you don't get people, where knocking on doors takes a lot of, I don't know if the word is guts, persistence, being able to deal with rejection. So kudos, what a great sales background. So one of the things we ask each of our guests, and really to understand, because we all have moments that change our lives, and maybe you want to share with our audience what your sales leadership awakening moment is or was. What's made you look at things differently from a sales leadership perspective?
Yeah, I've had a few, and a lot of these aren't so individual. They're somewhat collective. There's so much around the team, whether it's our executive team or the teams that we lead. But I've had a few. One of the biggest ones was after the first 4 to 5 years, we grew into this. We went from 5 to 40 million, all organically, mostly in Colorado. And we were just growing hand over fist and just doing things right, doing things well, serving customers well, adding to the team. I woke up one day and I said, holy cow, we are attracting all the people that we want in the industry. We're becoming an attractor, right? We're growing the team, not just salespeople, but all positions, but definitely getting our choice of great salespeople to keep building on. My aha moment there was, accept where you are. Sometimes that can be a negative connotation. For me, at that point, it was a very positive connotation. Accept where you are. Holy cow, we're here. We got to figure some stuff out. Cause you grow that quickly. We had big goals every year, but you grew that quickly. It makes you think. And I got to know Colleen a little bit during that time. And we started working together, started really laying some ground block or groundwork for working together a lot more later. I woke up one day, in addition to saying, hey, we had just eclipsed the size of our biggest competitor in the world. Their biggest region or office is Colorado. And we just
Okay.
tied or eclipsed that their size. We didn't even realize it hardly. I said, we have no playbook. Those meetings I had with Colleen, we had philosophies, we had great actions, great activities, and just the non-documented stuff, but we didn't have a playbook. It wasn't foreign, but it was like, holy cow, can you help us? So Colleen actually worked with me and a few on my team to start developing that. And it's evolved over the years, obviously, but that was an aha moment. I'm like, holy cow, you get that size of sales side of the operation. We all said, hey, best practices are a thing. And so we need a playbook. With that, there was one or two put together aha moments. But another one was fast forward several years after that, we had a chance as a company. We were right around 2017, we were right around 100 million in size, finally eclipsed that hurdle, if you will. And we had an opportunity to go bid on or compete for a $115 million job. Everyone thought we were crazy because how many companies will go pursue that type of opportunity that's equal to the size of your company? It could strangle you, choke you, it could do all those things. Our CEO or COO and myself and the rest of the executive team at the time said, we stacked hands and let's go do it. And it was painful. It was hard. It was incredible. But we hit a belief factor after that with the entire company. At that time, we probably had 150 employees or so. We hit a belief factor that was amazing. And that was when you do those things as a company, that can impact paradigms across the board.
Well, that's probably one of the most insightful aha moments. And of course, Colleen has helped along the way, which is great. I think she's a great partner to have in your business. Dan, what I hear you saying is growth has its share of challenges, and sometimes it's self-limiting beliefs that hold us back, that we don't know what our true potential is unless we push the envelope.
Definitely. We grew the executive team over those years and all the way to this point, obviously. And it takes stacking hands because some people are like, yeah, let's do it. Some people are like, holy cow, that's crazy. So it's really everybody stacking the ends on things like that.
Together we win, right? As opposed to divisiveness within an organization. I assume that's helped forge your culture and helped you continue growth of going in aligned as a leadership team.
Dan, you've mentioned a couple of things with my next questions popping into my head is what's it take to go from 5 million to 700 million? Now I've heard the playbook. We've heard take a look at self-limiting beliefs. You can actually do it. But for other people out there that have this goal or they're on this journey, what are two or three things that you say, this is what it's going to take to go from 5 million to 700 million or whatever the goal is?
There's a lot of things and there's a few key things. Number one, I go back all the way to my Southwestern mantra was if you're teachable, coachable, and you work hard, you will be successful. That sounds really simple and elementary, but it's still true. Some of the ways that our whole organization is teachable, that means keeping your ego in spot, right? At the right place. You got to have good ego, but you got to keep it in line. And I just remember a few things I learned from everybody because I woke up in this side of the industry. I never sold in Colorado. I never sold in the industry, so to speak. And there's positioning, there's framing, there's scripting, there's all the things that we had to figure out as an organization. So I just learned from everybody. I learned from our founders because they had grown up in it for 5 or 7 years prior to me, and they had a really, really good idea on what it took. I just watched them every second of the day. I watched them in meetings. I watched how they followed up and added things to it. One of the biggest things they did, I learned from our competitors. And one of our largest competitors, she was the most dynamite person in the industry for her entire company across the country, one of their top people. She owned the commercial accounts in Denver. I followed her around. She did everything right. She had a lot of years of experience on top of me, and I just watched and followed. I also just said, I'm going to be your number two. I can't go in and dethrone her right now or even share and steal that account, but I can be part of the mix. I went into everybody. I said, can I be your number two? Can I be your number two? Can I be your number two? And now we've flipped the script where we are one of the bigger ones in the country, but for so many years, we were not, right? But also we learned a lot from our PE partners, our private equity partners. We'll probably talk about them a little bit later. They bring a lot of expertise and we were able to work with great partners. Learn from our project directors and operations guys out in the field. They would give me customer feedback. They would give me so much insight on how we can do this or not do this and how we are beating or not beating our competition as well. So a learning attitude, the ego in check. And I think we had a really young team and our founder was a year and a half older than me. Co-founder was younger than me. So we had a lot of guys in their early 30s, mid 30s trying to grow this thing, whether it be our bankers, our financiers, people I talked about already. We just learned. We just took guidance and knew we didn't have it all figured out, but we had enough figure energy and belief to keep growing.
When I'm listening to this, it reminds me of Patrick Lencioni. The name of the book, I'm not remembering it right now, but part of it was how do you hire top talent? And he says, remain hungry and humble, right? And so my curiosity is two questions here to really help the audience have some tangibles. How do you vet for coachability and teachability? That's the first question. How do you vet for that? And then how do you as a leader model it? Now, I could tell the audience how you model it, but I'd rather have it coming from you. So how do you hire for it? And how as a leader should leaders be modeling it?
I'm still not the expert on hiring for it. We still have our wins and not wins on the hiring side. But one thing I've realized is it doesn't have to come from the industry, but the people that have been in situations where they actually have to work as a team. We call it a team selling environment in our industry. I know most companies don't proclaim this, but there's a lot of companies where people are on silos doing their own thing. It's going to be hard to be successful in our industry if you're not team selling with your project directors, field experts that are also considered salespeople. People that understand the team selling concept, that's important to us. One of the key questions we ask in our interviews too is explain how and when you've been solely or so reliant on the execution of a team. And everybody, there's sales and fulfillment in every organization. In a few industries I've been in, this one is even more relevant to that. From hiring standpoint, we don't have it all figured out, but that piece is important to us. And the service-minded mindset, we've made some mistakes there, and the more you can dive into that service is huge.
For leaders, because Stephen and I, in the work we do, I can tell you, put a fork in your eye if you're not hiring coachable people, right? Number one. But secondly, to have that integrity, what have you done as a leader to model that learning mindset?
I have really good relationships with my direct reports. I love being in the office. I think you got to have a love for people. Sometimes I've even been frustrated because I know I'm not out enough. I want to be around our people. I want to be around our clients. If you're in it for a title, if you're in it for just career advancement, that's fine, but you might be missing something if that's your main driver. Love being with our people, love being with our clients. And I wish I could do that more.
And I think people forget that. What do your prospects, your customers need? Well, you go out there and meet with them. They'll actually tell you if you're listening. So, but that takes time. That takes getting on planes. And I know you're on a lot of planes. It takes a lot of time in cars and such. So terrific. Thank you.
We also do that when we have customer issues, challenges, and things that aren't going well. My door is so wide open. I will be in the next meeting or the next discussion on how we can engage and make that better and bring it to the right side of the business where, hey, we need to fix this. Let's do this together. How do we do it?
That's amazing. I remember the days when we were growing. I don't think at the rate you were growing, but we tripled over 3 years. At one point, I think I said, because I come from sales, and when you come from sales and you're in sales leadership, it's that touch point with the customer has really dropped off. I said as a joke, can we put pictures of our customers up in our boardroom so I can actually remember what they look like? Every joke has a half truth, and good for you that you're maintaining that contact because it is critical in terms of a learning environment or a learning person. That's where you get your best ideas. So tell me a bit about your culture. You've been recognized as a top place to work, but I'm sure it's challenging going from 5 million to 7 million. How you maintain a specific culture, how you maintain that learning culture, that team culture. While you're scaling the business, it's hard to maintain that. So what's your secret sauce to really maintaining a culture and growing the culture as the business grows?
I think we've done a lot of things right. We've hit some challenges we've had to learn from over the last few years. Still in a great spot, but don't want to paint this picture that it's always perfect because it's not, right? But some of the biggest things we did early as a company, and this was just the founders. It's one of Colleen's main mantras. It's one of our 7 core values on our Credo card that we call is the fun factor. We would celebrate everything. Gosh, back then, if we would sell a job that was 5 or 10 times the size of our normal job, we might shut down the office on Thursday afternoon and just go celebrate, right? That was a big deal back then, right? It didn't have to be scripted at Friday at 4. Our founder just had a lot of fun. We traveled in packs as a team. When, like I said, we talk about team selling. It wasn't just the relationship owner or holder over here that they wanted the project directors. They wanted even the operations guys to come with us and, hey, we got this going on. Come meet our customers. That culture started very organically and grew and grew, and it still grows to this day. We gather our CEOs, They both believed in investing in retreats or the team, whether it be kickoff meetings or mid-year meetings. We gather. It gets harder when you have 400 people instead of 25 people. That's a thing to plan for and budget for and invest in. We've gathered on operations retreats, regionally, nationally, sales retreats, etc. That's a bigger budget hit when you get to the size we are, but we're still doing it, right? Philanthropy too. Philanthropy's always been part of what we do as a company. And we're in an industry where there is a pretty strong why. We have people that wake up in the middle of the night or come to work the next day and something's really wrong with their building that they weren't planning for, right? We get to go help them. Now, there's 600 or 3,000 other competitors that want to do it too. It's not like it's not competitive. We got to go position and be in the spot to do that. But we have a good why. With that why, we've taken our customer base. This is something that our founder really did well, and I appreciate it. Any event we could do, we would include our customers and turn it into a philanthropy event. So we've always been charitably minded, and most offices have 2 to 5, 10 events a year. Probably the only scripted one we have is we do a day of giving every year, the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. The company takes the entire day, lets their employees go out and do a day of giving. And it's whatever is important for them and their community to support. It's usually normal charity, women's organization, children's organizations, nonprofits, etc.
That's fantastic how you've been able to maintain that, because you were there at the early stage of the company. Much of that is ingrained within how you do business, how you expect to do business. What happens when you bring in new sales leaders, new leaders within the organization? I was looking at the executive team. How do you integrate them into the culture to really help continue? Because having someone like you, you've got the memory of how you've grown with sharing it, obviously benefits everybody. How do you ingrain this in new people and new leaders that come on board?
You bring them along, first of all, make sure that they're just part of it. We have gotten a little more sophisticated. We actually have a real onboarding plan that really started growing 3 years ago. We call it the BluSky Way. There is hours of a module. That's all we teach and talk to are these things. That's onboarding in a classroom, but then you bring them along, you make them a part. When you just do that organically and say, hey, this is what we do, no one's going to push back on philanthropy. It's like pushing back on safety.
So a little bit more formalized, but it's still the people who share their stories and perpetuating what you've done in the past and continuing to do that.
When you ask people why they joined BluSky, well, there's plenty of reasons that they need a job, they need to get paid. Yeah. When you're community minded and charitably minded, all other things are equal. That's important to a lot of people.
100%. That's great. Kudos to you and the founders for being able to maintain and perpetuate that.
You're just reminding me at one of your national sales meetings, your CEO, Kent, I said, Kent, this is a lot of money to bring people together twice a year. And he just looked at me, and Kent, he's got a finance background. He said, Colleen, I've done the math. One meeting like this, if it prevents 1 or 2 people from turning over, I've just paid for the meeting. So I like that fact that you guys have always kept those meetings going, because I remember watching, they kept getting bigger and bigger, and you did not cut back on them, which so many companies do because they're looking at the wrong information on the P&L statement, in my opinion. So that's just a side note. And I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you think about the growth and the culture and the challenges, it is hard. We probably learned more in the last 4 to 5 years than the previous 10 or 11. From about 2016, 17 on, we did start acquiring baby blue skies, if you will, because we had a vision to be a national company. And to be a national company, you've got to be able to have a framing and positioning for your clients to believe that. So we have to have locations across the country, and started really growing that versus just doing it organically. That's a 40-year process to do that organically. We wanted to do it a little faster than that. We started acquiring companies, and they're great partners. They really are. All of them are. But they're all different. They all have different models. And the importance of being in a location is just as important of saying, hey, we could spend 5 years analyzing this or buy and partner with the best one we have. That's been an important piece to us. Not just that. When you think about challenges with culture, you're bringing a lot of new people in your organization, and they're going at a quicker pace. What we've learned is nothing's on autopilot. And not that that's pervasive, but it can hit people at different levels at different times. You got to wake up every day and say, we're not on autopilot. These things are important. And we all can get desensitized in any career, and we're not immune to that. That's one of our biggest things. And keep those values and mission front and center. Someone joining us could say, oh gosh, this little Credo card thing that BluSky has, it sounds cliche. Is that lip service? Well, it can be, but the more you ingrain it, the more you talk about it and live it, the more people believe it.
It's very interesting. As you're speaking, I'm thinking of some of the companies that have had rapid growth, let's say in the SaaS area. When you go look at the leadership, the head of sales, if they're not progressive, they turn over every 2 years. If they're progressive, it's an 18-month history. I've been a VP of sales, and your first year, you're learning. Second year, you're putting your program in place. And then how do you know if it's any good or if you've done a good job? I think, how do these people jump every 18 months? There's a cost to doing that in terms of culture. I think it was Colleen who I learned this about tribes and people who own the culture or tell the stories. You never get that collective wisdom
Yeah.
over time, right? You have long tenure, not to say that you're a unicorn, but look at the advantages of having someone who's been there since the founding days and just how you speak about it. You're not just speaking about it because you read it on a card. You're speaking about it because you've lived it. You've been part of it. You've seen the success, and nothing goes a perfect straight line up, right? There's always challenges, and sometimes the challenge could be COVID or whatever things we deal with in whatever industry. But I have to say that there must be some advantage to continuity, because I guess I'm an older guy, but you look at some of the younger guys, 18 months, how do you really impact? How can someone impact an organization as a senior sales leader switching every 18 months? I guess I'm probably pissing some people off right now, or we're going to be listening and say, what's you criticizing me for? Clearly with Dan, you can see the wonderful advantage of leveraging time experience with the organization. What do you think the impact is with an organization? Every 18 months, they get a new VP of sales or a new chief sales officer.
Colleen?
Well, here's my opinion. I don't think you impact much. And I think what you've got to be really careful on, there are some industries where there's a little bit more job hopping, but my opinion is job hopping, you never get that deep, deep expertise. So sometimes it's just like you said, Stephen, first year you're learning, second year you're executing, and that's when you find out that it's getting tough. Sometimes what I've seen is when the going gets tough, people get going. They don't remain. They keep thinking the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and it's not. So my experience has been, I think out there, we're saying it's okay. This is just the normal, not the organizations I work with, because generally the organizations I'm working with, and I'm thinking you are too, because they don't work with people like myself unless they actually believe in investing in people. They actually believe in investing in culture. So most of my sales leaders, they've been around for a while. They're not job hoppers. The ones that are job hoppers, I'm probably in the gig business. I'm in for a program, I get the smile sheets, and then guess what? The VP goes and they bring in another program and another consultant. So I don't think there's much impact made. I think it leads into the next question, Dan, because I'm sure everybody, when they started listening to the interview today, they're like, wow, this gentleman is leading a $700 million organization. And you're sitting there telling them, and it ain't that easy. So I appreciate the fact that you're not making it all roses and everything's been perfect. But I know in our conversations, we talk a lot about ownership thinking and the fact that you actually have 250 owners at BluSky Restoration. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's made a difference on growth and also retention during the tough times?
It's been huge, and it still is. Early on, our founder, after about 3 to 4 years of growth, he took, at that time, it was a group of about 4 of us, and developed this KEG program called Key Employee Group. And it was real stock, it was real ownership, and it wasn't phantom, it was real stuff. Instead of getting the bonus structure was, hey, more stock, right? A lot of companies can do that, but it was real stuff. And he expanded that over the next 4 to 5 years as well to a bigger group, probably 12, 13, 14, and kept expanding that. So first of all, he knew he had talent. At that time, in the early days when he started that KEC program, we might have had 40 or 50 employees. He said, hey, we have talent. We have talent that's just as good or better than some of our biggest competitors, and it's all right here. They're probably going to go find something different or better if we don't keep them here. And had enough foresight and guidance to go to start that program. We've been through 3 private equity groups, and we've had phenomenal experiences with all of them. There can be some thoughts and philosophies out there about, does that really work? Is it good? We've always been a growing and successful company, so we've always had our choice. It's not like one was forced on us, but we've had great partners. With that, they've understood that that's important too. We've gone from those early days to 250 owners, whether it be acquisitions or key contributors, that impactful contributors at all levels. It's not just executives and office leaders, but are salespeople, that are project managers, project directors, that along with the leadership, that's part of what they've been able to participate in. And many of them, out of the 250, many of them have real money they've invested. Some of them do have profits interest. It's been very impactful for us. We're in the 250 range. And when times are tough, we've had those plateau years where you're not hitting your goals as consistently as you want to, but we're figuring this out and people stay with you through the tough times, like Colleen said. I just say, kudos to our founder and what we developed along the way, because that's important. And I think a lot of owners can maybe want to keep that, whether it's control or fear, all things. I know it's been geometrically beneficial for a founder that he did that.
Yes. It's interesting, Dan. There's a theme here if you really look at it. The fact, and I know how philanthropic BluSky is. And so that generosity of spirit started many, many years ago, because you're right. People can hold on to it and they didn't. And you can hold on to money and not donate the amount of money that you guys do as well. Lots of great things going on. So, Stephen, I'm going to
Yes.
turn it back to you. I hope you found a lot of great takeaways here. I certainly have, and I've known Dan for how many years, and I've got a couple of aha moments even on this interview. What's a big takeaway for you?
For me, I always look at simple basics. And early on, Dan had talked about himself and the people he hires and being a learner and going out and learning and being open to learn and upgrade your ideas. Hiring people that are coachable, to me, is an insight. I know when I work with people, I usually ask the question, are you coachable? Because I can't help people unless they're coachable. So you can have someone with a great track record, but if they're not open to learn new things, our world is changing at a much more rapid pace. I heard that 25 years ago. It's continuing to change. And if you don't have people who are learners and willing to take on new things and being coachable, learning from others. So to me, my takeaway is be a learner, hire people that are learners and that are coachable. I think that's a great insight. There's many others, Dan, that you've shared with us. But to me, I think that's a core basic message in terms of the people we bring into our organization.
Yep, good one. I can tell you, Dan is this voracious reader. In fact, of all the VPs of sales I've worked with, I probably gifted him with more books than any other ones because I know they'll actually get read. So that's a side note to your takeaway. But mine is this: nothing's on autopilot. That is going to be a mantra that I hope everybody walks away with. Nothing is on autopilot, because I do think it's easy for all of us. And I think, to use your words, Dan, to get a little desensitized or get used to something. So that's the mantra I'm taking away. Dan, thank you. I know how busy you are. So thanks for sharing your generosity of spirit, your knowledge, being transparent that, yeah, the journey is fun, but it's not always easy. So for everyone that joined us today, thank you for joining us on the Sales Leadership Awakening podcast, because our mission each time is to really bring on leaders that can help you bridge the knowing and doing gap, because sales leadership is not easy, and our guests are helping you make it easier. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Dan, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you as well. Appreciate it, Stephen and Colleen. Thank you.